call the meeting in order of Budget Committee meeting for Silver Falls School District. And first order, we'll take attendance, and I think because we've got new committee members and everything else, I think it'd be appropriate if we just went around and each person announced themselves as who they are. So starting over there.
Creighton Helms, parent of several in the district, and I work in the Jervis School District.
Kyle Palmer.
Sarah Doliski, board member.
Derek Foxworth, board member.
Phil Wiesner, board member.
Kelly Strawn.
Josh Ort, board member.
Gary Cedar, Budget Committee.
Okay, great. And we have a few absences, which Debbie will take note in a minute. First thing I'd like to do is just take a couple minutes here to go over what, for everybody's benefit, the public and new committee members and everything, some of the responsibilities and roles of budget committee members. It's charged with holding one or more meetings to receive the budget message and the budget document, provide members of the public an opportunity to ask questions about, comment upon the budget document, and approve the document as submitted by the budget officer or as revised and prepared by the budget committee. The budget committee does not change staffing levels, salary schedules, or negotiate salary contracts. It's not the committee's role to adjust policies or priorities set by the board or to add, delete, increase, or decrease programs. However, the school board budget committee does test the reasonableness of the budget line items to meet the priorities and the goals of the district as set by the board, and takes input from the public on the level of services planned. The budget committee can make changes on any of the line items in the budget to meet the goals and programs outlined by the district with the views projected. The appropriation level, usually the function levels such as 1,000 for instruction example, as approved by the committee and adopted by the board, has binding authority on the administration. The administration is given the authority to transfer funds between line items below the appropriation level by policy DBK. We think of the budget amounts in the line items below the appropriation levels as recommendations and guidelines to the administration. Transfer of funds at the function level or above must go to the board for approval by resolution. Individual budget committee members have no special authority to request information or direct staff to provide reports. The budget committee as a whole may, by committee vote, direct the administration to provide additional reports, information, data, or presentations to help the committee better understand the budget. The budget committee plays a large part in providing communication with the community about the budget process and limitations within the district's works. Committee members develop a good understanding of the district's fiscal constraints and the programs funded and are able to explain those things to their friends and neighbors throughout the community. The committee also provides an important additional conduit for input from community of their priorities for the district. And the committee is made up of the 7 sitting board members and then 7 appointed members from the community. And so for a total of 14. And so that's what makes up the committee. And so first order of business, we'll have the action item if we need to elect a chairperson for the budget committee. And I'll put an amendment here. General practice, it's not an absolute, but general practice is one of the sitting board members is not one of the officers on the budget committee. And so keep that in mind. And so is there nominations for a committee chairman?
I would like to nominate Dr. Helms.
Second.
Been moved and second to nominate Dr. Helms. Are there any other nominations? Okay. I'll call for a question then for vote. All those in favor of Dr. Helms, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. And then Dr. Helms, I'll turn it over to you, and you can get your vice chair elected.
Okay. there, you'll have to apologize, I'll have to apologize. Is there a script for the components for electing the vice chair, or are we just starting? with-
No, just same process we
Same
just did for
process.
electing you.
Okay, so, next order of business would be the election of a vice chair for the budget committee. Is there a nomination for a vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Josh Ort.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right. Only one nomination provided. We'll call for a vote. Those in favor of Mr. Ort for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Those in the negative say nay. So moved. Mr. Ort is the vice chair. And then next order of business would be calling for public comment, I presume?
No, it,
No? I don't have the agenda in front of me, so
here.
that's where I'm
Copy, I can
flying.
get mine off
There we
the
go. Okay. Hello.
computer.
Superintendent's budget message.
Okay.
Ms.
Thank
Kellison.
you, Creighton, or Dr.
welcome.
Helms. All right, this is kind of long. Tom wanted me to get some bullet points together. Didn't happen. I'll try and expedite it quickly. But it does have a lot of important information in it. So we'll go through it real quick. Dear Silver Falls School District family, staff, board members, and budget committee. Today we come together to review and consider the proposed budget for the 26-27 fiscal year. This past year has been a year of continued financial recovery and stabilization. And I'm encouraged by the hard work district leadership and staff have taken to ensure the district's financial footing is solid and that we are on the right path and that we are positioning ourselves to best serve our students moving forward. A well-designed school budget mirrors the district's strategic priorities, ensuring financial resources are used to promote student learning and well-being. Our new strategic plan, finalized in April of 2026, will guide our priorities for the next 5 years and includes the following goals. Student-centered systems that prioritize individual learner needs, adapt responsibly, and clearly articulate who we serve and why before defining how the work gets done. A culture of strong relationships, belonging, and community partnership is essential for excellence. Creating environments where students and adults, all students and adults, feel connected, supported, and proud of their schools and communities. Preparing students for a complex, changing world by developing adaptable thinkers and reflective leaders who are ready to thrive, contribute, and make meaningful local and global impact wherever their path leads. Excellence is defined and measured through whole child growth, academic, learning, critical thinking, character, perseverance, and responsible community membership, so that what we value is visible, meaningful, and aligned with readiness for life beyond school. The updated strategic plan will prompt us to focus our resources and efforts on initiatives that will move all student achievement and growth forward, including strategies and activities that support those endeavors. For example, under the first goal, we would continue to prioritize systems in primary grades that support early literacy to ensure that our third grade reading proficiency increases. Each goal has strategies and activities that help move us forward in a thoughtful way that is student-centered. On the state level, the legislature has adopted an $11.39 billion investment in public education for the 25-27 biennium, an equivalent annual increase of just over 5% a year from the previous biennium. While this increase is helpful, many of our costs as a district increase at an annual rate above the ODE budget increase. Utilities, for example, have increased at more than 14% annually. The cost of personnel, salary, and benefits is expected to increase and cost significantly more than the increase in ODE's budget. Because of these resource factors and constraints, our budget for the 26-27 fiscal year is conservatively built. Our district is not alone in facing rising costs. School districts across Oregon continue to make significant adjustments to manage growing financial obligations, particularly related to PERS. The PERS system has released preliminary employer rates for the 27-29 biennium that show a slight overall increase, though these rates are not yet final and subject to change. For our district, 2 of our 3 pension obligation bonds will soon be paid off. When those bonds sunset, the PERS rate discount associated with them will also end. However, the bond payments themselves also go away, and the net financial impact is currently projected to be minimal. However, this projection could change as final rates are established. To prepare for any potential increases, the district is continuing to build a PERS reserve account, and we had that in our budget last year as well. Our projected general fund beginning fund balance next fiscal year is $4.25 million, a 41% increase from the beginning fund balance of fiscal year 25-26, and our highest general fund beginning balance in 7 years. OASBA recommends general fund budgeted reserves total 3 to 8% of operational expenditures. And I've made it my goal to aim for the higher amount, 8%, for budgeted general fund reserves. For 26-27, general fund reserves are budgeted at approximately 8% of operational expenditures. As we built this budget, we considered a range of uncertainties and factors, including staffing levels and enrollment. We continue to look at staffing levels throughout the district and are taking a strict approach to any potential staffing additions. For the fiscal year 26-27, we will be adding a net 3.5 FTE to the general fund budget to support lower classroom numbers in elementary schools, growing numbers of EL students, and special education needs that have risen since last year. The cost of these increases will be offset by staff reductions and a few budget reductions in various areas of materials, supplies, and contracted services. Enrollment has stabilized and increased slightly this past year from 3,606 students at the end of 24-25 to 3,630 students as of March 2026. However, for budgeting purposes, we will continue to be conservative in our projections for fiscal year 26-27 to ensure we do not have to make any budget reductions as a result of overestimating enrollment. And then you can see right below that is a enrollment graph. And so it shows that we've gone up just a touch from 25-26. Food service deficit, our nutrition services program, which returned to being in-house in 25-26 fiscal year, continues to strive to reduce historical deficit in this program, which has trended as much as $400,000 annually. The district is on pace to cut the deficit in half within 2 years. And the nutrition services program has become more sustainable while still ensuring the nutritional needs of all students are being met. We are preparing for a replacement GO bond. GEO bond. Sorry. Just read it like it was, sorry. Yeah, no. In the 25-26 fiscal year, the district began developing a long-range facilities plan, which we're nearing completion on that. A requirement of the state of Oregon to qualify for partial matching funding through the Awesome Grant program. The current GEO bond that funded the high school project will be completed next year, with the final principal and interest payment scheduled for June 15th, 2027. By seeking voter approval of a replacement GEO bond in November of 26, the district can maintain a continuous funding source for facility improvements, including a new or renovated K-8 school and a middle school, along with other needed upgrades across the district. Increasing reserves. As the district continues to increase the sure-footedness of its financial position, we will continue to address facilities needs and adequate reserves. For fiscal year 26-27, general fund budgeted reserves have increased from $2.9 million to $4.3 million. The budgeted unappropriated ending fund balance increases to $2.8 million from the previous $1.95 million. And general fund operating contingency increases to $1.5 million from the previous $1 million. Together, these general fund reserves represent approximately 8% of the general fund operational expenditures, in alignment with our goal of budgeting general fund reserves no less than 4 to 8%. And the next chart shows our budgeted reserves as a percentage of, and this is just of general funds, so this doesn't include special grants and different things. And Tom will go into all that later. Facilities planning. The average age of our main buildings is more than 70 years old. Maintaining safe, accessible, and welcoming facilities is essential to student success. Like last fiscal year, this budget dedicates $500,000 towards a capital reserve to fund various facilities needs next fiscal year, as well as $280,000 to the Capital Projects Fund to address roofing needs. And that's just a small portion of the roofing needs. Long-term fiscal planning. The district has developed a new long-term forecasting model that looks up to 5 to 6 years ahead, helping us forecast as early as possible potential revenue, expenditure misalignments, and make the tough choices far in advance with thorough planning rather than having to quickly make corrections. Budgeting for a school district is a complex process with a significant number of moving parts. I want to sincerely thank our leadership team and staff who work diligently and thoughtfully to create a budget that prioritizes students, maintains essential programs, and builds toward long-term financial health. I want to also give a special thank you to our entire business and finance team, Allison Brown, Raya, I'm going to butcher this, Dencheva, Amanda Sloan, Tabitha Welch, and Tom Andrews. It has been a challenging but also rewarding year as we continue building our expertise in every single area of the budget. With a renewed emphasis on student achievement and overall well-being as dictated by the new strategic plan, the district is now well positioned to continue to provide a stellar education for our students while maintaining fiscally sound management district resources. Thank you for your ongoing dedication to our schools and students.
Next on the agenda is number 5, which is the presentation of the 26-27 proposed budget. Mr. Andrews.
Thank you very much. I am deeply afraid I've done too many slides, so I'm going to go fairly rapidly. So please stop me at any point with a question. We're going to start by talking a little bit about the process of developing the budget. The budget itself, of course, is built on this current year's budget, updating several areas as necessary and applicable based on known or projected changes or budget drivers. We want to cover kind of some of the budget vision and goals that are behind creating this next year's budget. First of all is to ensure that the budget is designed to support the district's strategic plan and strategic goals. Next is to maintain a focus on increasing efficiencies, reducing costs, and both looking at short-term and long-term financial projections. I'm really blessed with having a finance staff that no matter the amount of the transaction, there is an eye on it. And there's not a feeling like just because the number is large, that's what we focus on. It's a complete mentality over everything that comes across all of their desks. And it's really made an impact. I can really see that. And it's created a vigilance. It's also created a curiosity for my staff. They ask a lot of questions, and that's, I think, really a secret ingredient to managing the budget. Our other vision and goals include continuing to strengthen reserves and increase the district's long-term financial stability, and to begin prioritizing long-term deferred maintenance needs across the district. Some of the key budget drivers also include the following. Rising costs. Inflation continues to impact the cost of goods and services. For example, utilities have gone up about 14-15% this year. I think it was 6 years ago we spent as a district about $300,000 on electricity, and we're nearing $900,000 this year. So the increases there are going to be far more year over year, rapid in their growth than the support that we get either through property taxes or through the state. So that's kind of another reason for that continuous looking at how we can make increased efficiencies and how we can meet that. We have limited revenues. State and federal funding is not keeping up with cost increases, and future funding is somewhat uncertain. Although we have to note, first and foremost, we're in a much better position today than potentially we would be 6 months ago or 7 months ago, when there was talk of some significant cuts to the state support fund and to our main source of revenue. We have stable enrollment. Though enrollment has stabilized over the last couple of years, in terms of we had previous decreases, the future is uncertain. We had a consultant come in and do some enrollment studies. We'll talk about that in a second, but for now, enrollment is stable and in fact increasing slightly. We have a need for more reserves. We have a need for increased budgeted reserves in capital, for PERS, for general fund contingency, for fund balance. We have additional FTEs. We need to add folks to the budget. This budget adds several FTEs due to increased needs, and we've tried to offset those increases by having several different areas of cost reductions. And then one of the increasingly bigger items is our capital needs. We have a growing capital and deferred maintenance needs that increasingly must be addressed. Here's the enrollment slide again. You can see the decrease during COVID, and then kind of the bounce back there in the middle, 22, 23, 23, 24. And then decreases started 24, 25, and 25, 26, and now for this year we've gone up a little bit. We had a consultant come in and do some modeling, and it's probably most likely that future forward we might see kind of some baseline no change or maybe some slight decrease. It's probably more unlikely that enrollment would go up, but overall it's unknown. We'll be keeping our eye on next year, and what the numbers look like I think will be very telling for us. One of the areas of challenge is in terms of special education costs. On the right is a graph of our what we call SPED students, which starting in FY21 was about 475 and is now above 575. And so those numbers have increased. And on the left is how the district gets compensated in terms of high cost disability reimbursement. So on the left, and it's hard to see, I apologize, but back in FY21, we budgeted maybe 1.3 million in high cost disability, and we received 922,000 from the state. So not too bad, we got a lot of it back. And then that's decreased over the years. FY24, we budgeted 1.6 million is what we were hoping to get, and we received 244,000. Last year we budgeted 680,000, and we got 3,200. So the reason behind this is because high cost disability in the state of Oregon has about $225 million of need, but a budget of only 50 million. And they allow schools to ahead of time kind of project what their costs are, and then it has to be trued up kind of as a delay the year after that. And so there's some inaccurate forecasting sometime, and that allows some schools to get more temporarily, and it's kind of going back and forth year to year, and it's very, very hard to predict. I think at this point it's really safe for us just to budget really low, and then if you don't get very much, that's fine because you didn't put all your marbles in that bag. But then if you get more, it's a great surprise. You got more than what you actually budgeted for, and that's kind of along the lines of, I think, an important budget principle to me, and I'm sure you share it as well. In general with revenues, if you are projecting or forecasting a range, maybe budget at the smaller part of that range, and then be surprised if it's higher. Or I mean, that's a great thing, but don't put everything, all your marbles in the basket, whatever the term, eggs in the basket, thinking you're going to have a higher amount. And then it's the opposite for expenditures. If you think your expenditures on something is going to be in this range, assume it's going to be kind of the higher part. Don't try to just make it really minimal and then it's higher, and then now you have a potential problem in terms of the budget. So that's one of the drivers and one of the updates kind of from last year in terms of high cost disability. If we look at the budget as a whole that we're proposing, on the right is a graph of the amounts, and you can kind of see it's kind of in line with 4 years in a row in terms of the increase. It might at first glance seem like a lot, 8%, 8.3%, $7 million, but below that are kind of three important bullet points about that. Of that increase, that $7 million, 51% of that are increased personnel costs, wages, benefits, PERS, etc. That's half of that. We are in the people business as a school district, first and foremost, and always will be. The next bullet point is that 32% of that are increased budgeted reserve levels. That's an intent on our part to increase our foundation financially, to increase budgeted reserves, to increase contingency. to be able to pivot when we need to, where we need to potentially next year. And then about 17% of that increase are just general cost increases for contracted services, for example, for goods, and then for increased capital needs. We're needing to take some money from the general fund, $280,000, and put that in the capital projects fund, which we'll get to in a minute, which we have not done for many years. So that's the capital projects fund is funded both by grants, such as seismic grants that you apply for, but for a lot of districts, if they have the funding, they transfer a little bit from the general fund to also cover projects. So if you did an overview of the budget in terms of all funds, you can see that in terms of revenue, our resources, we're very much in the business of receiving funds from the state of Oregon. We're in the Oregon ODE business and property taxes. Everything else is very, very small. 3% federal revenue, 2% internal transfers, and about 2% other state or we get a little bit of money from the ESD locally. But primarily it's the state of Oregon in terms of our revenue source. And in terms of expenditures, if you look at all funds, 57% is personnel. It's higher for the general fund, but if you look at all funds, it's that amount. 17% are purchase services, such as transportation, all the busing, that's a purchase service. 12% is insurance, debt and fees, so we have several bonds that we pay off. 9% are budgeted reserves, planned transfers. 4% is materials and supplies. That's been one of the biggest changes for me coming here from where I've been before. But materials and supplies have usually been 10 to 15% of the budget. And so we're really lean. We don't buy a lot of stuff. It's really people and software and those kinds of things, but not necessarily material goods and supplies. And about 2% of the budget overall is spent on capital. So next we're going to talk about kind of the general fund. And I think it's important just to remember the general fund is it. That's your fund that represents your operational mission as a public agency. That is kind of your identity and where everything kind of flows in and out. The funds that are around that, special revenue funds, debt service funds, capital project funds, internal service funds, or trust funds, such as the funds we set aside for the charter schools, they kind of float in their own orbit. They have their own ins and outs, but they kind of self-balance in general. They kind of have their own floating mechanism, but it's really the general fund that really represents what is going on as an agency. And there's been some pretty interesting change to our general fund since COVID. And I hope this is legible, you can see this, but the green line on the top is the revenue that we have received from the state of Oregon ODE, from state support. And then at the bottom, you see a little gray line that kind of bumps up in FY22. So what happened during COVID is the state of Oregon had to do budget cuts, so we got less money from the Department of Education, but we got more money from the federal. We got ESSER funds, we got the COVID relief funds. So you can see that bump in FY22 on the gray line, and then the dip in the green. What happened afterwards is they kind of created a new trend line. When ODE restored the funding and it started going increases year over year after that, we're kind of on a different trajectory than we were at previous to FY21. And what that has caused, and we're no different than other school districts, what that has caused is really kind of constricted overall your revenue. You have less revenues for capital needs, for replacing a roof, for things that are kind of the general maintenance. It makes school districts, for example, be more reliant on GO bonds for making repairs or building a new school if needed, or other projects. And so that's kind of been a main driver over the last couple of years. The ESSER funds, in other words, kind of, it seemed like it was great. I mean, it met all of our needs, but it wasn't revenue that we earned. And so behind that, especially when enrollment dropped, it kind of created a triple threat. All of a sudden you weren't in the revenue business that you were at before, but your expenses were right up here because you still had the same staffing. And that created tremendous pressure on the district's finances overall 3 years ago. So kind of here's our assumptions for the general fund. For the revenues, this is based on the March 26 state school fund estimate. It's about a 4.36% increase over last year. Property taxes, we will budget pretty conservatively, and they've varied at anywhere from 3.35 to the upper fours over the last 6-7 years. There's a lot of unpredictability right now in terms of what the exact number is going to be with property tax, so we'll be a little bit conservative and assume at least a 3.5% increase there. We also include a projected beginning fund balance, which is the same thing as the ending fund balance for this year, of $4.2 million. That's conservative. It might be a little bit higher, but we don't want to get that wrong and have costs this year that end up making that a smaller number, but then you build your budget based upon this kind of baseline that's not there and you have to adjust. That's also a very, very significant increase. We started this year with a beginning fund balance budgeted at $2 million, an actual audited fund balance of $3 million. Then in terms of expenditures, we're assuming all general fund personnel costs are projected to increase about $2.5 million. Or in budget talk, it's about 6% more than what we budgeted for this current year. And that's a range of different things. Wages and steps and COLAs and additional costs for benefits and PERS and additional positions. We're assuming that for purchase services, transportation, utilities, those are projected to increase about $500,000 or 4.5%. And then one of the biggest changes is our reserves. We're going to increase the budgeted contingency, which is an appropriated amount that can be spent, almost $500,000 or about 47%. And we're going to increase our budgeted ending fund balance, so that's unappropriated, meaning it's set aside. The district cannot spend those funds. We're going to increase that $850,000 or about 44%. And so the revenue picture looks like this. Beginning fund balance, in terms of budget over budget, increasing 100%. Property taxes there, you see about the 3.5%. You have kind of an intermediate source of revenue. The ESD, Education Service District, is a little more than 1.4 million. And then the state sources, SSF, is up about 4.8%. So overall, revenues, or resources, more correctly, increase about 8%. On the expenditure side, there's kind of two lenses to look at it. One is by function, and the total by function for a fund like the general fund or for a group of funds is what the board approves in the adopted budget. So we do list that, and that's kind of by functional area: instruction, support services. There's an area called enterprise and community services, which is actually mostly in grants. There's interfund transfer and contingency, so you can see that change there. Oh. Sorry. Okay, I'll say it again. So the breakdown is by function and by object. At the top is the function piece that I just mentioned. The bottom is by object, which is kind of more how we speak every day. Wages, benefits, contracted services, things you buy, materials and supplies, et cetera, et cetera. For expenditures, we also include transfers out, which is a little higher this year. We are budgeting a transfer out of $329,000 for nutrition services. We think it's going to be a lot less. This last year, it was actually $600,000. As it had been negative for several years, and we finally had to clean that up and get it to zero. Previous to that, and several years before, it was about $400,000 a year. My guess is it'll be closer to $200,000. That's our goal after next year, is to get that kind of deficit in nutrition services much, much less than it's been historically, around 2. But that's not 100% guaranteed. So I'd rather budget a little bit high and then ended up needing a lot less. But I'm putting it in the budget now kind of as a placeholder. The other transfers out are kind of scheduled things. We have the Schlater debt, which is for some of the needs here at the middle school. We have a lighting project, SB 1149, that has a loan that has debt, principal and interest payments. We're assuming that we are going to use funds this year from the capital reserve to replace the chiller here at the high school, which will be around $500,000 or more. That needs to be done because the original unit was for a school much smaller than this. And so we're gonna have to replenish that reserve, so that's the 500,000 transfer there. And as I mentioned before, 280,000 transferred to capital projects, which is a very normal thing. It's a very healthy thing to have some part of the general fund be transferred to capital projects, because those never end. And then insurance reserve, we just need to prop that up a little bit, and so we put 50,000 in the budget for that. If you look at it in terms of the overall total, what's appropriated versus unappropriated, the appropriated amount that's being authorized is 58,005,080, which is 6.8% above this current year. And overall, when you add in the fund balance increase, it's about 8% over this current year. It also represents, to me, in terms of the fund balance, a real symbol of health. Here you see the ending fund balance in dollars. FY24, the ending fund balance actually was a negative $2 million. We got a loan that actually propped that up to the positive, but that's not real true money that we did on our end, so I think it's good to show the graph kind of like that. You also see a trend line going up, which is great, because before that you kind of had a trend line going down, and we've really turned that part around. The other good symbol is what is the percentage of your fund balance of operational expenditures. This is one of the main measures school districts use to kind of gauge their reserves. OASBO recommends between 3 and 8%. I would say we should probably look at between 4 and 8%, but aim for 8%. For this year, our ending fund balance will likely be 8%, and we're also assuming in the budget for next year, when you combine fund balance that's budgeted and contingency, it's also 8%. Questions for me at all on the general fund?
What's the difference between the capital reserve and the capital project funds? Didn't last year we establish one of those with like $500,000?
Yeah, correct.
Which one was that
So
we knew?
the capital reserve was set up last year with a $500,000, and that's for like unforeseen things, for emergencies, things that break. Capital projects are planned, and what's really great is to kind of, in your adopted budget, you should kind of put some information about what those are. So year over year, you can kind of see things that you've planned. You have a gym floor that needs to be replaced. You've got a roof here that you can, projects that you can control financially and can have the means to transfer for money into. Both funds have been around this year, and capital projects has been around previously, but usually it's been for grants. So if we apply for a seismic grant, which we did previously for Silvercrest Elementary, and we're going to do again for a couple of elementary schools, so that's one of the reasons it's in the budget. Then we budget it. Even though right now in the budget, we don't know if we're going to get the grant, you put it in because in case you do, you can then spend the money. It's kind of like in case you get it, so to speak. And I'll cover that in just a second.
I would also add that the long-range facility team, not the meeting coming up, but the one after that, will take, what is not going to be managed by the bond or the bond campaign, and create a 1, 3, and 5 year plan for things that need to happen in the district, and so that we have a schedule and a structure, so that we're doing those things in a timely fashion.
And then one other question was, it seems like when we were talking about a bond before, I can't remember who it was that was talking about the ending fund balance, the percentage of our budget that represented had an impact on the rates that we could get for bonds.
For your bond rating, your
Yes.
financial rating.
So is that accurate, and is this, like, I assume we're moving in the right direction, but
Correct.
when you say 4 to 8%, I feel like they were talking about a larger number, like 10 to 15% or something being.
No, I would think it would be, I would think where we're at would be in line with what they require.
Yeah, I don't know of any.
That's what a WASBA requires.
Yeah.
Or recommends.
That's pretty much the standard, I think, for school districts. So,
It's really good.
and it's a really good point, because one of the talking points I love to say is that you're budgeting your reserves based upon your need from one year to the next. And what's weird about school districts is you don't have a lot of costs during the summer, because a lot of your staff start in September is really kind of when school starts. But you get 2 payments from the state of Oregon in July. So you actually start way in the, in the green, so to speak. You have a lot of revenue.
Yeah.
It's the end of the year that's a challenge, because in June you have 3 payments going out in terms of salary. You're covering people because of how the 12 months
Right.
works. And so you have triple the costs of all your personnel in June. That's what you have to prepare for. For a lot of public agencies like cities or fire districts or something, that's not the case. They don't have any revenue at the beginning of the fiscal year, and so they need large amounts of reserves right away.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I have two questions, but first, I definitely want to laud you and your staff and Ms. Kelson. This presentation of the general fund feels much more like a positioning year than a survival year. And I know that's no small feat, so I would say applause to that. The first question, and you may have addressed it, I may have missed it, but the kinder donation for that one FTE slot, what's the forecasting long-term plan for that position, and assuming the donation is not annually given?
We haven't covered that. Did I put that on
He probably read, yeah.
Was that a slide that came up first?
the?
Oh,
Did I skip that?
was that a skipped slide? I think it
It's
was
in
I think it was 150K for the kinder If that's not covered yet, then,
Yeah, that is
Here
a
we go.
check, that is, yeah, that, so
You wanna talk
all
about
of
that?
those, all of those positions, so there's several in there, a sped teacher,
right.
an elementary teacher, an instructional assistant. Those were to help manage, literacy, instruction, and coaching across the district and support kinders coming in. I will say, I'm not sure if my literacy plan that I wanted to do with the coaching plan that I had is gonna work exactly like I thought it was going to. So I'm not sure, because I had like a 1-year plan, with a coach to, that was in district to go around and help, buildings really, capture the early literacy plan that we've been developing and really implement that with fidelity across all buildings. So I may have to adjust this, but, it would have to be absorbed into general fund
Sure.
if we, if we
Yeah.
didn't do something different than the following.
And that makes sense. I was just curious about that. And then the other one.
That's a great question.
And then the other one had to do with special education students. I think with the numbers, it said somewhere around like 16% of the districts identified, but obviously
Correct.
with an 11% funding cap. High-cost disability kind of conservatively budgeted, that wouldn't make up the additional 5%. Is the rest just, as is in many cases, is just kind of absorbed in the general fund strategically? It just kind of built into existing FTE?
Yeah, it is absorbed into general fund, although, the goal of the district is to serve all of our sped students really well.
Sure.
And unfortunately, the federal government and the state don't really give us the necessary tools to do that. And so the district absorbs those costs. And we want to serve all students in a way that is really powerful and meaningful and effective and all those things. But that is a huge problem statewide, the high-cost disability. Superintendents, we've been complaining for 2 years. We've talked till we're blue in the face. I don't know what else to do about it. They tried to pass legislation to increase the fund to $200 million, and when they started having all those budget things, it didn't pass in the short session, and so it went down. And so it's still at $50 million, I believe, and that is just a fraction of what is actually submitted to the state for reimbursement. So we always try to be really accurate with our estimate. Brandon would do a really excellent job saying, this is about what we spent, and then we would we're going to get this amount. But then when the actual other districts weren't good about the estimate, so they just kind of guessed, or they guessed really low. Because then what happens is when everybody submits everything in the spring, they would submit $200 million worth of, last year it was $198 million, I think, worth of high-cost disability expenses. And the state's like, oh, well, now you didn't tell us that to begin with. Like, you told us like $100 million. We thought we were getting like 45 cents on the dollar. And then all of a sudden they're making you pay back or give back money because there was so much higher cost, and the costs for those services for students are just going up and up and up and up and up. So if you have a student that needs, one-on-one care or medical attention or a special placement, like some of the placements for students that need a special program, some of those are like $120,000 to $130,000. So those are super expensive, and they don't reimburse us for those. We get 25 cents on the dollar. If we're lucky, we just don't budget anything for it anymore because it's completely unpredictable, in my opinion.
I think since the the budget stress that was present 6 months ago has gone away. We're hopeful next year or the year after that, they will finally fix it, because it's a complaint of every single school district.
Yeah.
There's probably a little bit bigger fires these last few months that had to be put out first. But this is definitely on the list. And I sincerely apologize. That slide I meant to cover in the general fund was these ads. And then to say how cognizant we are of this increased cost. This is almost $500,000. And we are so just connected to the fact that if we're going to have increases, we have to constantly find decreases and increased efficiencies and ways to kind of offset that. That mentality is the secret, I think, to avoiding something that has happened previously. And it never ends. That vigilance never ends. So that's what this slide was for. That covers kind of some of those reductions to help compensate. It includes kind of four things. About $225,000 in actual personnel cost reductions. We received a donation of $150,000, so for this next year that helps offset that position. I have canceled several contracts that we didn't need. There was one service that was $25,000 a year. I don't think we've used it in 4 or 5 years. In terms of a financial software program that I don't think really worked correctly. So it's again going through every single thing and finding what you can reduce. And then we are buying some Chromebooks this year, and we can therefore reduce the budget for IT in terms of computers we have to buy next year. So we're just kind of looking at it through that lens. This is just an example of you need to connect the two. If you're going to be increasing costs, you have to have the vigilance to then make the reduction.
And those are hard conversations to have. Though that's not an easy thing to do, especially when our staff has been through so much in the past few years, and to have to say that, we might have some slight reductions so that we can increase our support for SPED students and students with disabilities and kinder kids. I mean, that hurt my soul a little bit. Like, I don't ever want to have that conversation, but that is my job as the CEO to manage and make sure these things balance to not make Tom's job harder. And, the business office does a really good job of tracking all these things and making sure that we're, really staying on top of stuff. But in the end, sometimes you have to make hard choices, and that was a very hard thing for us to do, and not something we took lightly.
I got two things. I want to go back to the SPED thing real quick, because the increase what defines a student to be in that category?
High cost disability?
No, SPED in general. It's like right here, this slide.
Why are the numbers going?
What is it? I mean, like, obviously there's a concern because that's going to increase costs. Is this a procedural thing? Is this an environmental thing? Like, this is who we're grabbing? And because is SPED just anybody who's on the IEP or?
So those are students that are on an individual education
Okay.
plan. Yes, those are students that are on an IEP.
Okay.
And to qualify for high cost disability, it means that the education services we provide you is over $30,000. So anyone under 30 is considered a regular cost. The high cost would be anything over 30, and so they don't reimburse us up to 30. It's once you hit 30, then that's when it kicks in, and that's when you can claim those costs through OD.
And then my other one would be, great. I'm just going to focus on general fund, and I'm just a little nervous of the percentage of jump in expected revenue. I did see that our A&D came quite a bit up, which I was surprised to see. Didn't expect it. I'm afraid to trust. It's like gambling the market right now, that because of everything, or Title I, 2, 3. Remember, that's not part of the general fund, but all the instability, the financial stuff at the state. We just went over this last year, that they're going to give us another $4 million in revenue. You guys have done such a good job. I'm nervous of jumping that much. But
You don't need to be nervous when it's set in the biennium like this. It's already set. They would have to do a mid-year reduction on us. It's very unlikely. I've only seen it once.
2008, maybe?
Yeah,
It was
2008.
I think that was the last
right.
major mid-year reduction.
Yeah, mid-year reductions are very unusual.
I think part of that's just all the emails we're getting at the beginning of the year between the federal
Yeah.
government and the
Yeah, that
state.
was very stressful.
It just like
Yeah.
makes me.
I kind of miss those days because I lost 10 pounds.
Well, I just try, you know, Tom and I try and keep you updated on what the current trends are. And at the federal level, we've been very conservative with what we budgeted. So, you know, like if you look at the title funds, like we didn't budget anything for Title III, like not much. You know, there's some of those don't have hardly anything in them. Title I and Title II, we're pretty confident that those are going to be whole in the federal budget. And Creighton's nodding, he
Yeah.
thinks that as well. I do think that, you know, I think this looks a little higher because there's also those seismic funds are in there, in the resources, so that makes it look $2.78 million higher. And then Bethany has a large.
Trued up fund balance of $1 million.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, Bethany has an extra $1 million that they've been saving for their gym project, and so that is in there. And that wasn't accurate last year, so that was missed last year, and so that is an accurate fund for them now. And so that's, you know, that's $4 million. And then how the biennium is split, so it's split 49-51. And so in the second year of the biennium, you actually get more state school fund than you do in the first year. So that's another,
You bring up a good point, though, but it's not necessarily about next year. It's the next biennium.
yeah, the 27-29
And
is.
we'll start stressing on that in about 5 or 6 months and
Yep.
start.
So our expected revenues, we're set this next year.
We're pretty much, we are
Awesome.
pretty much set, which is also the other reason to increase the reserves
Perfect.
as much as we can to kind of position, there's a lot of unknowns for the next biennium. And again, we do not know what the final PERS rates are. We've done all the math and we look like we're pretty solid, but that's based upon just early estimates, and I don't know what's gonna go on in terms of the state over the next year.
Which is why we have a pretty good balance in that.
Reserve we haven't tapped yet as we continue.
Yeah, correct.
So I'm going to talk about, all right, the little planets that are floating over the general fund. So these are the groups of other funds. Our two funds, or what we call the special revenue funds, include basically 5 federal funds. You have Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and IDEA. And then you have this group of funds. We have a small fund for vehicles. We have a very large fund through the state for SIA, Student Investment Account, a very large one for high school success. Then we have preschool promise, CTE grants, early literacy. We have kind of a miscellaneous state grants when we get things that maybe we didn't know about, we put them there. We have a very, very large fund in the student services, and those are all the PT kind of parent, teacher, the student orgs. I just have been blown away. I've never worked for a school district until this job, and I think historically, if you look at both the current and dormant accounts, it's about 1,200 different accounts that go back over the last 10 years, with up to $2 million in donations a year. So it's just incredible to me. I mean, I'm just blown away. You guys are probably used to it. I'm not. I've never seen so much support for individual schools and connection to the community, and that's really reflected in the 270 account.
Yeah, there's $2.8 million budget proposed in there.
And then child nutrition's $299. So we had Elise Hansen come and give an update on kind of the nutrition. We've talked about the deficits in the past, so that's Fund $299.
And we are gonna apply for the community eligibility program again. If we apply this year, we're in for 4 years, so it stays on the books for 4 years, so hopefully we will get that.
That's the one that was participation rated, right?
It is based on your poverty rate.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
not I remember there was a discussion, one of those programs was, we didn't have enough people participate, we'd owe, possibly.
I don't remember
Wasn't that the food program that we went into?
Oh, the consortium?
Yeah, sorry, is that some whole different thing?
That's a whole different
Okay,
thing.
sorry.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, I was
good.
thinking the same thing, Josh.
So overall, for the special revenue funds, the change year over year is about 5%. The main takeaways are for the federal title funds, we're looking at projecting about a 12.9% over the current year increase, but there's of course uncertainty. It's not 100%.
Well, and Kim and I didn't put the full amount in there last year,
So
because
that's
we
part
weren't
of the-
sure if we were gonna get it.
The 270 accounts, we're budgeting an increase of 24%. They continue to have more and more support. We have almost a 300% increase over the last 6 years. which is higher than most school districts out there throughout Oregon. And then we've kind of covered the child nutrition food services. Again, the goal by next year is to have only 200,000 maximum be transferred from the general fund to shore that up each year in terms of loss. Any questions on the special revenue funds?
I have a question just out of curiosity. The CTE grants, how come it went down so much from 24, 25 till this year to next year?
From last year to this year?
No, from 2 years ago. It was like 109,000 and 35. Am I looking at the right thing?
What line?
Yeah, you're
I
on.
was under the assumption that was what they had just gone for themselves to get.
I think it's fund number 254. Looks like,
Oh, CTE grants.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting is on this, we're required to show 2 years of actuals and then 2 years of budget. So in other words, what you're seeing for last year, or for this year, is not what's currently happening this year. It's simply what we put into the budget for this year. So that often is the source of confusion, because you'll see 25, 26, why is there only 35,000? There might be 100,000 in there now. That's because we are required to list the budgeted number because this year is not done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
okay.
it's still fluid officially. So
That's a complicated process through MWEC and through Perkins, and sometimes, depending on how many completers we get, like we receive funds for that, it's really complicated. It's tough to figure out.
Oh. So that includes Perkins funds?
I think so,
Yeah.
254, isn't it Perkins too? Yeah, thanks.
So the answer is, we don't really know.
The answer is you're comparing actuals to budgeted. And
Right.
so it's based on the assumptions a year ago versus now actuals. And that's not what we show in the budget, so it doesn't really help. But you can see historically in FY '25, like you're saying, we received 100,000. And I don't know, I mean, we could try to look.
Zero year to date.
So we haven't received the funds
They
yet.
don't come in
So
till late spring.
Timing
Yeah.
is the other
Yeah,
thing,
I
especially
see.
with grants.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Yes, great.
I guess you can always tell when I'm thinking out loud. Correct me if my number's wrong. I think when I was going through this, I noted a couple of major decreases, which I understand. And one of them was pre-K programs. And then up there in special, which I think was, 1140, I saw a notation for preschool promise slots. Is the reduction of pre-K programs offset by gaining of preschool promise slots? Did I read that wrong? Or is there just a reduction overall of preschool services in this?
No,
By
that
district.
program is the same, and it has the same amount of slots. It has 18 slots, I believe.
Okay.
I don't think that has changed.
Which fund?
So under 253, preschool
No.
promise?
1140 was the,
Oh, the function code.
yeah, the function code for,
So the fund is 253. Okay.
yeah.
That's the revenue code, 1144.
you're on page 16, is that right? Is that the one you're
Yeah, I
referring
think
to?
so. Yeah,
That
these pages are,
line
So
doesn't
page
make any sense.
16, 11, 14, you're looking at the pre-kindergarten programs, is that the
Yeah.
one?
See, in FY '25, we received 230,000.
right.
This year, we budgeted 269. I don't have the information in terms of why we came up with that number. And then, based on what we have 253.
This is what they're talking about right here. Like this,
That's the general fund.
I know, but that's what he said. He said
Oh, are
1140.
you looking at fund?
I may have written down my number wrong, so.
Are you looking
yeah.
at fund 253, or are you looking at the general fund? Because the monies are actually in fund 253.
Okay, then
not
that's
fund
where it is.
100.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a grant, so
Yeah.
preschool promise, so that
Thank you.
program pretty much pays for itself, so the district
It does,
doesn't
yeah.
really supplement that.
Okay,
So the $288,000 will cover it.
Okay.
If we had it, there was a little tiny bit in general fund probably used for it previously, but not anymore.
okay.
So on this book with the plastic binding,
Yeah,
it's at the top of page 29. You can
Okay.
see the pre-K programs. Last year, our actual revenue was 230, and we're budgeting 253,000.
okay.
The other confusion that's similar to that is in the general fund, I think it's in like community services or something, you know, the 3 function. There's usually 0 or 8,000. That's because the general fund doesn't have it. It's always in other funds. So it looks like, why don't you put any budget in there? Well, it's because it's in a separate fund group. It's not always easy to kind of see that, especially if you're a new person looking at the budget. It looks like it's not a priority. You have to kind of dig around. Oh, I found it. It's over here
And I did confirm there's 0 in the general.
in the general fund.
Okay, I think that's what I had originally saw, but offset with preschool promise slot revenue,
Yeah, I
which
remember
pays for
that-
itself. I mean, we have 47 slots, so I know
Yeah.
it pays really well, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So the next group of funds is our debt service funds. This is probably the easiest because it's set by schedule. You have a schedule of principal and interest payments, and then you're just budgeting to make those payments. Fund 310 is our general obligation bond, the high school bond, which has 1 more year. Fund 320 is our PERS pension bond debt service. That's to cover the UAL, the unfunded actuarial liability that we are charged by PERS, and so we pull that out of payroll as one of the percentages, which is why our benefit rates are so high, as much as 70%. So if our benefit rate is as much as 70%, if you make $1,000, then $700 is some expense on top of that PERS. Fund 330 is the Schlater building, and Fund 340 is the lighting projects that we had previously. And as those start to get paid off, the budget has decreased slightly. We don't need contingency anymore in the GO bond for the high school because it ends next year, so it's all going to be closed. But previously we had contingency because of various unknowns in terms of what you collect. Oh, there's the soundbite, sorry. Expenditures determined by schedule. Last year of the GO bond for the high school. 2 of the 3 pension bonds will be completed after next year, 2028. The Schlater Street Building Improvement Loan will also be completed and paid off in 2028. And then the lighting project continues, and that will be paid off in 2032. I forget what the payment is on that. I think it's about $100,000 a year.
104,000, I think. Something like that.
Any questions on debt service fund? The next group of funds is the capital projects funds. Fund 410 is our capital reserve. That's what we established last year with the transfer of $500,000. This year, sorry. We established it last year in the budget for this year. Fund 430 has been in existence for some time. That's our capital projects funds. Over the last several years, it's mainly been through grants only. So if you have a capital project, it's because you applied for like a seismic grant. That has a big change, primarily because we are applying for $2.5 million in grant funds. So we're increasing the amount should we receive those funds. And I don't know exactly what the timing is. I think Jeff, our facilities manager, said it should be the next couple of months that we find
Are
out.
those seismic projects or just stuff that's out there?
Seismic assessments and seismic improvements.
Excellent. Good job.
And it also includes, oh, I did put notes, yay. Okay, so the district has, we applied for the SRG seismic grants, which is up to $2.5 million. The funds, if awarded, would help with seismic upgrades assessments. Funds are budgeted to 430, which is capital projects. We're also setting aside $280,000, again from the general fund, for capital projects. We're going to focus on roofs to begin with, and then replenishing the capital reserve of $500,000, assuming that we're buying the chiller this year.
I gotta say, it feels so good to hear you guys are going out for grants if they're available.
Got to get every single. We want the people.
Yeah.
We want the grant people in Oregon to be sick of hearing from us. That's really the goal.
But as a taxpayer, knowing that you guys are actively doing that and not just not getting money that could be available to us is huge.
You can't get it unless you're the squeaky wheel and find them all and just send all those applications. Any questions on capital projects? All right, our next group of funds is what we call the internal service funds. Fund 610 is insurance reserve. Fund 620 is unemployment reserve, and Fund 640 is our PERS reserve, which I believe we created this year or last year.
Last year.
So overall, there's not much change in it. The amounts are almost the same year over year. I think I did put a couple notes. Oh, I did put notes. One of the things in the budget is that the unemployment fund is decreasing. We're not putting in transfer to that, and the reason is 2 years ago we put a lot of money in that fund as we had many layoffs. What happened is a lot of people that we laid off found jobs right away. And so there wasn't the high amount of unemployment claims, which we thought might happen. And so the fund balances remain very, very healthy. So it doesn't require any support, any transfer from the general fund. It can still float out there with the balance that it has. It might decrease slightly, but for the next year or possibly two, it's self-sufficient. So that's one of the main changes there. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, I can put $1 million in there.
The next one is our trust fund. So this has one major change, but otherwise it's basically kind of a pass-through. We get the funds through SSF allocated based on ADWs and enrollment, and then by contract we pass that on to the charter schools. The change is huge. We've gone from 2.4 million to 3.4 million. But if you look at instruction, it's basically the same. Support services, about the same. And here's the reason for the change, and this is really small, so maybe the screen up right above you is a little bit easier. What has happened is, I think we've kind of made an error in budgeting over the last 2 years. The fund balance in FY21 was 250,000, and it's grown to more than $1 million. But we kept budgeting the same amount. FY23, FY24, FY25. This year we kept putting 150,000 as the budget, and I don't know why. But they were aware of it too, so they knew the number. So this next year we were able to kind of actually recognize that. So this is your fund balance. They want a lot of it to be under capital projects. I think 800,000 or the amount is, so that they can choose to do that. The rest would be in contingency. So that's the major change. There's nothing different in terms of the formula. We're just recognizing the money that's been sitting there in terms of fund balance. That makes sense, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Questions on the trust funds or questions on the charter school budgeting? So in conclusion, the proposed budget is aligned with the priorities we've identified on the budget message. Recognize that budget development is a complex, multi-month process that has been driven by priorities from our leadership team, from our superintendent, from contributions throughout the organization, community, as well as regional and state partners. And then we're happy to take remaining questions, any discussion items. And just finally, to close, me as your finance person, been in public finance 20 years. I've never in my life seen anything close to anything as complex as school district budgets. I have 30 funds. At PCC, I managed 1.5 billion, but that was 11 funds. Their budget book is 70 pages long. Only 20 has financials. The rest is basically all written dialogues about strategy and stuff like that. So ODE is incredibly complex. The requirements are complex. Grants are complex. It's a really tough thing to learn. It really is for me. So my brain's been very happy and filled with all kinds of information. So thanks for your patience as I've slowly gotten up to speed as well.
It's hard for me to learn too. When I started.
I just had a quick question. Going back, sorry I missed it. For Fund 310, account 1,111. I was just wondering on the projection or on your proposed for 26-27 for the current year taxes, why they were reduced from the previous year?
Because the payment is lower.
Okay.
Yeah, so you mirror the principal and interest payment as you close that bond out.
And it's near the last payment is June 15th, 2027.
Okay. Thank you.
We would need to collect more. There wouldn't
Yeah.
be a reason since it's the end.
Yeah.
Good question.
That bond sunsets June 2027, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, at a very recent board meeting, maybe the last one that was at the middle school, I don't remember if this was part of your report or if it was just a comment in passing, but you were talking about kind of an increase in attention to math soon from ODE.
Yeah.
Is that coming soon enough that it's accounted for here? Like if there's new training or materials or things of that sort?
Yeah, okay, so there's some accounting for it. So last year, when they talked about doing the new accountability measures, which is Senate Bill 141, House Bill, Senate Bill, I always get this messed up.
It's one of them.
It's one of those. And I could look it up and find it for you real quick. ODE and the legislature passed that bill because they wanted districts to show them and be more accountable for how we spend our state school fund. And so part of that is that we add interim assessments. And so those were cut during the budget issue that we had a couple years ago. And so we added some of those back in. So we added STAR and we added the early literacy component because now the accountability measures they start in kindergarten. They don't just start like OSAS does in 3rd grade. So they're going to require us to report interim test scores in some type of system. And they only approved 4 systems. So they approved STAR, they approved MAPS, they approved iReady, which we already use for math. So we're squared away on all the testing part of it. And they also approved a product that's related to SBAC. It's a form of SBAC. Have you seen that yet, Sarah? I haven't seen it yet either. So they approved 4 products that you could use for assessments. And then they have new goals for us. And so one of those goals that I talked about is the math. And so currently in the state, the average OSAS score is 28% for math. I'm not sure if it was to grade 5 or I think it was to grade 5. And now they want us to hit like 52%. It's a very lofty goal. We talked to them about that during the meeting because we've added a lot of instructional minutes for early literacy. So our teachers are teaching 90 to 120 minutes of literacy every day, depending on whether they're doing writing or not, or it depends on the day. But we have a non-negotiable of 90. That we said that's the minimum. Sometimes they do more when they do writing, but. I don't know where to put an additional 30 to 40 minutes of math and meet all the other requirements. I don't know if Creighton's figured it out either.
No, we're in the same place.
Yeah, it's just really hard, to get that movement on early literacy. And our early literacy scores are, higher than the state. So our literacy in general is higher than the state. We would have to give that same concerted effort to math. And we're still kind of working the kinks out of the early literacy, right? We're trying to make sure, we've been going around to buildings, and Elise and I are seeing some amazing things in, in those primary grades and in the higher grades too, with 95%. That's a very rigorous, I really think a lot of that product, even though I know it's kind of hard for teachers because it has a lot of verbiage in it. But they're doing an amazing job. And so, we want to get all the kinks out of that. How are we doing the intervention for that? So, districts used to use all different methods for intervention, and now our method is more strategic. We're using more repetition at the same product. So when you go into an LRC classroom or you go into a basic skills classroom, students it supports their core instruction, so they are seeing, they're seeing the same type of repetition, and they're just getting more repetition. And so it's a better way to teach that, because they don't have to learn a whole new system when they, it's confusing for kids when they have 2 systems. So anyway, I think that math thing is next year.
Okay.
We did want to adopt some better new updated curriculum. So at the high school curriculum was not adopted in the last adoption. We did iReady, in the lower grades. But the 10, 11, 12th grade math was never purchased because of the budget issue before I got here. And so we want to, they know what they want, but it's not built yet. So we didn't purchase it because they want to use Shannon McCaw's product. We use her product at the middle school, and she's an amazing math wizard. And so they want that product that's not done yet.
Okay.
So we have to wait. So there's a lot of things going on.
And then kind of another general question. It seems like the hybrid program that started this year was quite popular. And they got a lot more students than what was the initial cap. So how is that fitting in the budget now? Are you expecting that again next year? Are they getting more help? Well, I guess they weren't on the list of added positions.
They're not. Jen needs another position, and we're still talking about that. I don't know how to do it right now. So we have talked about that. So it's kind of in the works, that stay tuned. Because if she had another teacher, she could take more kids in that
To my
program.
understanding, if you see the enrollment increase, you can make that change mid-year if you want to, right?
Sure, yeah, we could. Yeah, we could add staff if we needed to, yeah.
Because you see, okay,
Yeah.
that pays for it.
It's a
Right.
one-to-one.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I mean, that's why we had a little extra budget this year, was because, you know, our enrollment went up a little bit, and you get paid by the student, you know, so it was a little higher, which is why we can do the chiller and, you know, some of those deferred things.
I have a general comment and then a question. I just want to recognize the phenomenal work by the whole financial team. To be in a position that we are now is highly, highly impressive. And so thank you for all the hard work to get us where we're at. With that said, there's obviously some icebergs out there with the, you know, you talk about the utility increase, you know, $900,000 just to keep the lights on is, I mean, that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And the state, even if they increase, it's still not meeting the anticipated needs. My question, sorry, I'm gonna go back to the general fund, and you touched on this, specific to like increase in license and classified salaries. The increase, is that based on kind of the current known knowns, like the current step increases, not necessarily any potential contracts that may come during the,
A couple increases, but we made all the same assumptions this year that we did
Okay.
last year, so it's kind of a nice to copy that over.
okay.
Yeah, we just kind of rolled it over. Yeah, we are negotiating with both units, so it's hard to tell right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to note again, we are increasing contingency for unknowns.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple general comments. So I think this is fantastic. You know, I think it can't be easy. And then,
No.
trying to figure this out. I did see I can see the juggling act that has to happen with you guys. I saw the counseling services look like it maybe went down a little bit for budget. I can't imagine how hard that is to do when you gotta go figure out where should our resources best be spent. You know, I also think I know that we're still low on nurses. We gotta do with what we do, with what the state gives us. So I commend you guys for coming up with this and how hard those discussions probably are behind closed doors. And from where we were to where we are, pretty impressive. And Tom, you've been fantastic. So.
Tom is fantastic, so staff.
And your staff.
Yeah, he has a really good team.
Counseling services and a lot of those services, and Kelly, you had some great questions too by email. It can be confusing because it's not all general fund, and then it might move back and forth between grants based on one year to the other, based upon what's changed, kind of in either the budgets or the information from the grants.
I want to reiterate what's already been said as far as the phenomenal job that we're doing and making it so it's user-friendly for us to understand. And I don't think it can be ever overstated what all your team, Kim, and everybody has accomplished, our district, all 400 and some employees, what's been accomplished in, not even quite 2 years' time yet, as far as being dastardly in the red. A couple of us have talked at times of how different it feels and how different it is, and there was moments there that we thought we may never see days like numbers, you know, in this rent. But we also know that's been on the back of workload of personnel.
Yeah.
It's been on the back of students, too many in some classrooms, and not getting as good an education as everyone here knows that they need to be getting. But I also know we're making strides in that area, and that you touched on it earlier when you talked, Tom, about we've added, and Kim in her message, we've added some FTE, but we've actually reallocated some FTE from other places, and so we've had to make some choices, and a lot of times that choice comes down to whether it's student facing or not, and which I'm a big advocate, that's where the best
Priorities.
bang for the buck is, and that's why we're here. And so, but it's all on a lot of people making it happen, and it just doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So that's appreciated. I know saying it's appreciated doesn't go very far at the grocery store or gas station or anything like that, but it is appreciated.
Yeah, our staff has done a really good job, and, you know, it hasn't been easy for them to adjust to lesser staffing and higher classroom numbers, and, you know, we're trying to be thoughtful about how do we manage that, how do we get those down, but, you know, those are like that across the state. And it is a statewide issue, it is not just a Silver Falls issue, and, you know, there are districts scrambling around, trying to cut millions of dollars right now, 7, 5, like Eugene, and I mean, they're all over the place cutting. And the state is going to have to figure that out. So they need to do a couple of things. They need to fix high-cost disability. And I don't know if they listen to any of these meetings that we do. I don't know, but I say it every time because I feel like a broken record, but they need to increase the sped cap to 15% at least, maybe 16. That's gonna be really important. You know, if we could be properly reimbursed for what our costs are to help our students excel and succeed. And we want to serve all kids in the district, super important. And then our facilities, like they're doing that huge facilities assessment with Bureau Veritas. I don't think they get it sometimes about the ADA complications and, you know, the insufficient areas for kids with disabilities, and you know, we don't have areas for special services, like people that want to be, you know, helping a student with speech or occupational therapy, all these things. We don't have spaces for that, and our buildings are really inadequate, and that's because the state has not taken care of us. And so until they start taking care of those 3 things, Oregon schools are going to continue to suffer.
Yeah.
And PERS, gosh, how did I
Yeah.
forget about?
PERS and
Our
on
friend
the-
PERS.
on the fiscal, even what we touched on earlier with the, everything's a domino. The utilities going up so drastically high, and think of the difference between heating and, if you're fortunate enough, cooling a 70-year-old building as opposed to a 5-year-old building. There's a lot of difference.
difference.
And so that, it just gets compounded
Yep.
as far as the cost. So,
Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, you know, coming from a city budgeting background, very different, and kudos to your team. The budget document is extremely readable and very enlightening. It's unfortunate to see how it works when you have 0 controllable revenue sources.
That's a really good point. You can't
That's a great
control
point.
You can't
the
raise
revenues,
water
you can only
rates
control
to
the expense.
make up a difference in capital needs.
Yeah.
Not that that's fun either, but
No.
yeah, no,
Real.
really well done. I appreciate it, and of course, I didn't see these documents a couple of years ago. I'm superintendent, but your team has done a great job of turning things around.
Thank you, yeah, they've worked really hard. They're a great team.
And just a reminder, as soon as you make a budget document,
It changed.
What's wrong?
It's outdated.
completely expired 5 minutes later. And that is
Yeah.
an ongoing headache and frustration, because literally after you send it out, you put 90,000 for something, for 2 or something, and then you find out information. I think we actually only need 1, so maybe and you have to let that go, because it's a snapshot of a moment in time. We might even make changes between now and the adopted, but only the changes we can only make if approved tonight are down.
yeah.
We can't go up, and so we also try to be conservative through that lens. I'm not saying there would be anything that we would decrease, but if we did, we had that kind of in mind. It's like a flight plan. This is the kind of general direction things are going, but why you need reserves and contingency is there's things we don't know now that are going to happen over the next year, and I think that's really the important thing, especially with the state and how school districts run and expenses that come your way. You cannot forecast everything. You can only kind of do the big brush strokes and try to capture that.
City's finance director used to come to every city budget meeting with a 2-page document of changes from the budget that we had 2 days previously.
Yeah.
Still will this year, I'm sure.
Tom, I may have thumbed over this, but Medicaid administrative claiming, is that, I don't think I saw it in here. Is it not because of just the exceptional volatility that's even coming or not? Is that?
The Medicaid revenue?
Yeah, was it, accounted for somewhere in here that I
It is,
missed?
it's in the general fund.
Was it? It just piqued when we were talking about nurses a moment ago, and I was just wondering,
General fund.
if it is in there, is there consideration for that being cut at the federal level to
Yeah, that,
It's at the bottom of page 13.
15?
So we budget only about 195,000. The actuals in FY '25 were 224. The actuals in FY '24 were 689,000.
Right.
So the Medicaid revenue and reimbursement has really gone down. So yeah, at the bottom of page 13, you can see
13,
for next year, we're
okay.
budgeting 195, which is again the same
I
that we
see that.
budgeted this year. We can only show again the budget for this year. We can't show what we actually think it's going to be or something. So
Sure.
a little bit more
75,
year to date.
yeah, so it's lower than,
And then we
Okay.
get the final Medicaid like 6 months after the year ends.
It comes
yeah, it
late,
takes
yeah.
forever.
It's just the
for it to
timing
come in.
is really
I think
ridiculous.
that's one thing we're really nervous about is how much
Yeah.
we depend on
Yeah.
that to an extent and whether or not it's even gonna be available in the
Yeah, I
future.
don't, I know, yeah, I don't
So-
know if that's even in Trump's proposed budget, I haven't seen it.
We anticipate some cuts Medicaid-wise based on
Okay.
the big
Do they take that out of your high-cost disability
Reimbursement.
reimbursement? Like, do those two things play off of each other, or no?
It could affect food, it could affect SNAP benefits, it could affect how free lunch is given. I mean, it's a lot of unknowns how it trickles down.
But it does, I don't think it impacts state, because they're two different
Yeah,
funds.
the-
Medicaid-
one
Like, if
comes
you have a
from the state.
high-cost disability student who has services, they also get Medicaid reimbursement. You can get both, and they don't like,
Yeah, they don't take away from high cost disability. I don't think that's part of that report.
No, the Medicaid administrative claiming is more of a snapshot of what staff are doing,
Yeah.
that then they can get their time kind of reimbursed through Medicaid for
Right.
services they're
But that same
doing.
staff member's salary would count against the high-cost disability
If you,
Correct.
student.
if you apply the Medicaid to their salaries, then yeah, that's right, and that's a tricky calculation.
Yeah, try not to.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
please?
I obviously am new, and I am also very reassured by what I'm seeing as a parent in a district, so much kudos and appreciation for all the work that went into this. I'm just wondering, Kim, if you would be open to sharing, in looking at the strategic priorities here, there's definitely been an emphasis on early literacy, and like you gave that as an example of an investment to support these priorities, and I'm curious if there's any other specifics you could speak to that investments that are in the budget that relate back to the priorities that are outlined
Yeah,
here.
sure, I can. So, one of the things we did, so in our budget, and it was on Tom's slide, we had, in order to get everybody paid for, we paid for a teacher out of Title II. So Title II allows you to pay for an elementary teacher if it reduces classroom sizes. And so in the last two budgets, we had an elementary teacher paid for out of Title II, most of them, their FTE. And so we took that teacher and we moved that teacher into general fund, because you shouldn't leave teachers in title funds like that, because to me, it's not as stable as general fund, and that's an elementary teacher, it's kind of a big deal. So we took that and we put them back into general fund, because Title II is really designed for teacher improvement, staff improvement, for professional development. It's not designed to pay for teachers. And so now that frees up $105,000 in Title II that we can use for professional development. So we have a variety of things that we want to work on next year. So part of our early literacy work has been around creating RTI systems and MTSS systems. So these systems of support that help students, catch up or, just reteach, pre-teach, all those different things that kids need in order to be successful. And then the other part of that is like, how do you manage classroom behavior? Because if you don't manage classroom behavior, Sarah knows this, she's a behavioral specialist, that you can't get any real teaching done. And so what are you doing inside your classroom that makes it more conducive to learning and helps students with social and emotional balance and belonging and welcoming atmospheres and all that. And so that $105,000 we're going to spend on professional development for staff. So part of it will go towards early literacy training. So in my experience, it's really important that we train all of our classified instructional aides that work with students so that they know how to run a reading group similar to how the teacher runs it. So if we have new classified people coming in, they'll get training in reading groups and how to run those effectively and how to provide intervention if that's their jam. And then also we will do, we're partnering with Northwest PBIS this year. So we're gonna have a huge PBIS initiative in the district. And, you know, we did an inventory on that. So that's a positive behavior intervention system, which really helps kids do the right things, right? So you're setting classroom expectations and you have a morning meeting every morning. And, you know, there's all these things that you can do that make kids more successful. And if you set the system up, it will help the teachers. So giving the teachers the right tools to be able to manage those stressful situations with students and providing the right support. So we did take that $105,000 will go towards training for our staff. So that's one of our goals underneath that section.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, I mean, it just like rounds out, you know, the reality of what the budget translates to
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the schools.
Some of those real pieces.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion points?
I have one more on my list.
Please.
Good thing I emailed you earlier in the week, Tom. How are we providing interpretation and translation services? We talked about that a little bit in email, but if it's not budgeted, how are we providing that?
So sometimes those services are budgeted through the LSP with the ESD. So sometimes we can, when we have our meeting with them, like we can choose different services from them. And so sometimes it goes through the ESD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And just make sure everybody knows, the ESD, for example, is given 2.1 million
Yeah, I think so.
on our behalf as a district. They get to keep 20% of that as an ESD, but they also have a range of services that we can select from, which counts as part of the 20%. So it's in your interest to start saying, we want this, and it's like shopping, we'll take 2 of those.
Yeah,
and
we
4.
did the shopping today.
But the more you do that, over the 20%, then the less you receive from them, because the amount you don't use, the ESD then forwards to. So kind of like, they're kind of a sideline to the SSF. They're kind of like a small amount.
They're one of Tom's errors in the budget because I spent too much money with the ESD today. Tom's like, Cam, that's not what I had.
Well, and it's an easy error, like, oh, we'll charge that to the LSP, but what you're doing is you're creating expense because you're getting then less from the ESD. So instead of 1.3 million, we might get 1 million, you know, which is a little bit less year over year.
Yeah, they call it flow-through dollars, like they just come to the district. And, you know, I mean, we use them for a variety of things. So, you know, we add translation if we need it, or we have our occupational therapies on there, physical therapy, communication. I mean, there's, you know, because we can't afford a full comms person in the district. So we have Kelly Scott 2 days a week, and we partner. And Jervis has her, I think, too.
Yes.
She does an excellent job. So it's like Jervis and Silver Falls are like splitting the cost of Kelly Scott so that it's more affordable that way for all of us.
And we can't hire a fifth of a person, but it
No.
allows you to do that for various services because it's spread across.
I have another question. I'm going back to the adjustment that was made for Bethany. I'm just curious. You all seem like you're very competent in fixing budgetary problems, and I'm curious what you have learned or identified to ensure that something like that oversight doesn't happen again.
Keep notes and write stuff down and keep that as a record. I don't have an answer as to why we would budget 150 when obviously over year it was increasing, because you can account for it. You can put it in as an unappropriated fund balance. Them as a school could choose to do that. There's several other ways to do that. So at least we are cleaning it up and zeroing it out, basically, instead of having it just be there in the account. They're very happy about it, and at least they know about it. So it's not like, what? We have $1 million? It's like, oh yeah, wait, that's part of the, you know, like.
Yeah, they knew it was in there.
So that part is kind of the silver lining.
I'm not sure why we didn't know. I still don't.
Yeah. Well, is this on not to get too much in the weeds, but is it have to do with the reporting? Because they keep their own budget, but then we have the numbers within functions from that budget. Am I
We have
close to right
the
on
finance
that?
software that shows the
Yeah,
fund
we have the
balance.
And-
oversight.
And so is it more based on information we were given was lacking, or is it we put it just in the wrong category somewhere?
Probably that.
Or a combination of both?
My suspicion is because of other fires over the last couple of years,
Right.
they just copied over what was budgeted, even though I think both parties knew that the actual amount, kind of in the bank, you could say, so to
Right.
speak, symbolically, was larger.
Right, okay. Because, yeah, in conversations with them about other things, they knew they had that money there. So-
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or discussions? Next on the agenda is public comment. Debbie, should I read it for just the sake of consistency of the meeting notes?
Let's see if we have anybody
It-
online, see if Daniel has anybody online.
Okay.
We normally would read it, though.
Sure, I'll just go ahead and read it while
Yeah,
we're
just go
checking
ahead
in
and
that
read it
way.
while she's-
The Silver Falls School District Budget Committee encourages public comment in order to make better informed decisions. The Silver Falls School District Budget Committee has established the following guidelines to accommodate public testimony. One, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized by the committee chairperson or however you would do so virtually. For the record, please provide your name and relationship to the district. Keep your comments concise and avoid repetition. Be specific about what it is you want the budget committee to do. In order to accommodate all who want to speak, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And a group appearing at the same topic is asked to designate a primary speaker and may be granted 5 minutes. And we do not have any public comments, virtual or in person, so we'll move to number 8, which is the approval of the budget or decision to proceed with a second budget committee meeting. If I remember correctly, we take a vote to see if the committee approves the budget or not. If the committee does not approve it, then we move to scheduling of a second meeting. So, is there any discussion points before we move to a vote of approval of the budget?
The only thing I have is I just want to confirm, Debbie, you got the addition of one budget member, because I know when we first started roll call, we had 9, and then we had,
Yes, I
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Okay. Are there any votes in favor of approval of the budget as presented?
I move to
Are
approve.
there any seconds to the vote?
I second.
You second. All right, all of those who are in favor of approving, this one I felt like should have a script.
The budget as presented.
Yeah, so, all right, for all of those who are voting in favor of approving the 26-27 proposed budget for the Silver Falls School District, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. So moved. The committee votes to approve the 2026-2027 proposed budget for the Silver Falls School District as presented. No second meeting is necessary. Number 9 is discussion of any other business or future agenda items. All right. As committee chair for the Budget Committee, I will move to adjourn and then turn the microphone back over to Ms. Kellison for anything
Yeah,
to close
thank
us
you
out.
Thank you for your service this evening, and we appreciate your great questions and your engagement, and thank you for serving on the committee. It really is helpful.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you to Tom.
Yeah.
Tom's a rock star, literally.
Oh,
It's real.
Before we're gone here, on
Not picturing.
our
Yeah.
official
That's
motion,
a-
do we need to have the number, the actual number and tax rate?
No, that's part of the
They
adopted.
don't need to be part of the motion?
No, that's part of the actual legal appropriations.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's done at the hearing, yeah, I believe.
And the final budget document, the adopted, will have color photos and more dialogue. This is proposed, to me, is always kind of a bare bones document that's mostly numbers, so it's going to be fun to develop. And hopefully we'll put a lot of strategic stuff in there and information. We want the public to read it.
Yeah, we want them to know all the great things we're doing here.
Okay,
okay.
well, thank you.
All right. Do we have public comment? Oh, no, it's just my exceptional daughter. All right. Thank you, everybody.